Hey guys, tonight we slip straight into the dark, shadows stretching, walls breathing, and silence that feels just a little too alive. It's the kind of night where every creak sounds like footsteps, and every flicker feels like a signal. You probably won't survive this if your imagination gets the better of you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I want to know, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now? Drop it in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step out onto the streets of Tudor London, and immediately, you regret it. The cobbles are slick with yesterday's rain, but it's not just water. You've already guessed what else is seeping down the gutters, chamber pots emptied with a casual shout of "Garda's loo" from some upstairs window. Too slow, and, splat, you're baptized in a stranger's dinner. You laugh nervously, because that's not survival, that's humiliation. And it happens every single day. The air smells of smoke, damp wool, and something meat-like that definitely isn't meat. Somewhere nearby, a butcher slaughters animals right on the street, tossing offal toward the waiting dogs and rats. Rats are the true landlords here, slipping through alleys, multiplying in corners, daring you to look them in the eye. You know they carry fleas, and fleas whisper the word plague, but nobody dares linger on that thought. You keep walking, boots sinking in the mud, though mud is generous. It's a soup of waste, straw, horse dung, fish guts, and rotten vegetables. You step lightly, because losing a shoe here means losing it forever. It's not just gross, it's dangerous. Slipping means a broken bone, and in this world, one broken leg might mean never walking properly again. And the noise, oh, the noise! London in the 1500s is alive with shouts, merchants hawking, apprentices yelling, bells ringing from every church. A boy runs past with a tray of hot pies. He smells good, until you remember most pies are filled with questionable meat. Dog? Cat? Pigeon? Nobody asks too many questions. Historians still argue whether Tudor London smelled worse than other medieval cities, but you don't need a debate, your nose has already cast its vote. Now you glance up at the timbered houses leaning out over the street. They seem to fold inward like they're whispering secrets, blocking the sky. Windows are tiny, sometimes just holes with shutters. Privacy is a luxury. You hear your neighbors sneeze, argue, kiss, and pray. And above it all, laundry flaps in the smoky air like flags of surrender. Suddenly, you hear a shout. A fight breaks out in the tavern doorway ahead. Two men tumble onto the cobblestones, fists swinging, knives glinting. The crowd circles instantly, hungry for drama. You freeze. Do you join? Do you run? In Tudor England, getting caught near a fight means the law could blame you just for standing too close. And trust me, you do not want the sheriff's men dragging you to the stocks. But before you move, an old woman tugs at your sleeve. She mutters about selling charms, rabbit's feet, sprigs of herbs, bits of bone. You don't believe in her magic, of course, but in a city this dirty, maybe luck is worth buying. Then again, remember, one accusation of witchcraft, and you're the one tied to a stake. Your stomach growls. You pass a stall selling eel pies. Eels are the cheap fast food of the Thames, wriggling, muddy things people scoop out by the dozens. You think of pizza rolls, and suddenly eel doesn't sound so bad. Except you notice the stall keeper using the same knife to gut the fish, scrape his boots, and cut your slice. Bon appetit. A man shouts your way, move along. You realize you're blocking a cart hauling barrels. One slips, smashes open. The smell of stale ale floods the air, sweet and sickening. People dive in to scoop it with their mugs, never mind the shards of wood floating inside. Waste nothing. And speaking of waste, you turn a corner and face the Thames itself. It's wide, brown, and alive with traffic, boats crisscrossing like ants. But the water is also a sore, a dumping ground for everything. Laundry women slap clothes against the surface, while right downstream, butchers rinse their knives. You think, and people drink this? Yes. They do. Or they drink weak ale, because at least boiling made it safer. Your throat is dry. You're thirsty. But you hesitate, because surviving one day in Tudor England means choosing between thirst or dysentery. Pick your poison. And just when you think you've seen it all, a parade shoves through. A nobleman rides past on horseback, velvet shining, servants clearing the way. Children scatter, women bow, and men tug their caps. For a moment, the dirty street sparkles with power. But don't be fooled, step too close, splash his horse, or accidentally laugh, and you'll feel the crack of a whip. Social order here isn't just rules, it's life or death. The crowd disperses. You're alone again, picking your way back through alleys so narrow you can touch both walls. The sun is dropping, and with dusk comes danger. No street lights. Shadows deepen. You hear footsteps behind you, too steady, too close. A thief? A cut purse? Maybe worse. You try to quicken your pace, but your boots slip on the wet cobbles. You stumble into a side lane where two boys play a dice game. One laughs, flashing black teeth, the other spits into the dirt. They look up at you, eyes sharp. You clutch at your pouch, suddenly aware of how vulnerable you are. And you remember, most people carried their coins in belts hidden under clothing for a reason. The footsteps are still behind you. You turn. Nothing. Just darkness pressing close. Maybe it's your imagination, or maybe someone is waiting for the perfect moment. Either way, you don't sleep easy tonight. Because here, in Tudor streets that never stop whispering, it's not about living well, it's about living through the night. You wake to the sound of clattering buckets and the smell of smoke still clinging to your clothes from yesterday's streets. But worse than smoke, it's the gnawing ache in your stomach. Hunger. And in Tudor England, hunger is your constant companion, like a neighbor who never, ever moves away. You shuffle toward the marketplace, drawn by the promise of food. But here's the twist, in this world, food doesn't just feed you, it fights you. Every bite is a gamble, every swallow a dare. The bread stall catches your eye first. Loaves stacked high, brown and heavy. The baker shouts, "Fine bread." But don't be fooled. If you're poor, you're not getting wheat bread. That's reserved for nobles and the wealthy. No, you're stuck with muslin, a rough mix of wheat and rye, or worse, barley and oats. And to stretch supplies, bakers slip in fillers, chalk, ground-up beans, even sawdust. You bite down, and your teeth spark against grit. Congratulations, you've just paid for the privilege of chewing pebbles. Still, it's better than starving, right? Unless the flour is old. Then you notice the little black specks wriggling inside. Weevils. But here's the rule, don't look too closely. If you squint, you can almost pretend they're just seeds. Protein, right? Modern nutritionists might even call it sustainable eating. Your Tudor stomach calls it betrayal. You turn away, swallowing nausea. The next stall lures you with meat pies. The smell is rich, savory, but you know better. Meat here is rare for common folk, and when you find it, it's often green around the edges, freshened up with spices to hide the rot. Pepper, cloves, nutmeg, they're expensive, but they're magic tricks to cover decay. Historians still argue whether Tudor spices were about taste or survival. Either way, you're basically eating perfume sprayed over roadkill. Someone jostles you. You glance down, your purse is still there. Lucky. The thief's attention is elsewhere, a tray of roasted birds. You lean closer, curious, only to realize they're sparrows. Tiny, bony, barely more than feathers and beak. Still, people chew them whole. Waste nothing. You hear a boy chanting, "Hot codlings." Hot codlings. Apples baked until soft, sold steaming in greasy paper. You almost smile, it feels comforting, almost modern. You buy one, bite in, burn your tongue instantly. Some things never change. But here's the danger: fresh fruit or raw vegetables. Almost unheard of. People think they're dangerous, unwholesome. Cooked, baked, boiled, or pickled, that's the Tudor way. You crave a crisp apple, a fresh salad. Forget it. Raw greens are considered fit only for animals. Imagine telling a Tudor farmer about kale smoothies. He'd laugh so hard he'd choke on his barley bread. And then there's fish. Oh, the fish. The Thames is full of it, so the stalls overflow with eels, pike, and salmon. But don't picture fresh fillets on ice, ice is a fantasy. These fish flop half dead in baskets, all days old, coated with salt to mask the stench. Eels especially, slimy, tough, writhing like they resent being eaten. Yet they're everywhere, pies, stews, even sausages. London practically runs on eels. You wonder if you'll ever escape their slippery grasp. A stranger offers you buttered beer. It sounds heavenly, but remember, it's not beer like you know it. It's warm, spiced, and thick with egg. More like liquid custard. You sip and gag. Imagine drinking pancake batter with hops. Yum. Still, it's safer than water. Everyone drinks small ale, weak and cloudy, but boiled enough to kill most germs. Children, adults, even monks at breakfast. Imagine kindergartners today with mugs of ale instead of milk. Suddenly school naps make sense. You drift toward the dairy woman's cart. Cheeses and butter stacked high, but oh, they reek. Cheese is strong, hard as stone, meant to last months. Butter turns rancid quick, especially in summer. Yet people still eat it. You wrinkle your nose but buy a lump anyway. Hunger makes bargains. A fly buzzes near your ear. You swat at it, only to notice the buzzing is everywhere. Flies swarm the meat, the bread, even the sweets. You think of modern health inspectors and laugh. No one here has heard of refrigeration, hand sanitizer, or Best By dates. Food poisoning isn't a risk, it's practically dinner's second course. Now here's a quirky fact: some Tudors believed roasted hedgehog was a delicacy. Yes, hedgehog. Baked in clay until the spines came off. You can't decide whether that's innovative or just desperate. And desperation defines every meal. Remember, harvests fail, winters bite hard, and famine lurks close. People bulk up meals with pottage, soups of grains, peas, onions, whatever surround. It bubbles in a pot all day, thick, grey, endless. Day after day, the same spoonfuls. Some historians debate whether pottage counts as a complete diet. You don't care, you just know it tastes like sadness. Suddenly, a bell rings. The crowd parts. A wealthy noble strides in, servants carrying trays. Roast venison, gilded with gold leaf. Sugar sculptures shaped like castles. Marzipan molded into knights and dragons. Your jaw drops. The smell alone is intoxicating. But you're not invited. You stand outside, stomach growling, while nobles wipe greasy fingers on embroidered napkins. That's the Tudor food pyramid. The rich eat swans stuffed with pigeons stuffed with sparrows, and you scrape mold off barley bread. The feast fades from view. You're left holding your lump of rancid butter and stale loaf. The contrast burns. But remember, survival here isn't about fairness, it's about enduring. You slink into a tavern, thinking maybe warmth will help. Inside, the floor's sticky, the air thick with smoke. A man slams down a tankard of ale, froth spilling. Another gnaws on a bone, tossing it to the floor where dogs fight over scraps. You squeeze into a corner, nibble your bread, sip your ale. And you realize you've made it through another Tudor meal without dying. Barely. Then someone sneezes. Wet, hacking, right beside you. He wipes his nose on his sleeve, then tears bread from the same loaf you've been eyeing. You look down at your food. Suddenly it doesn't seem so safe after all. Because in Tudor England, the question isn't what's for dinner. It's will dinner kill you first? Morning again, and the smoke in the air seems heavier, the damp biting deeper into your bones. You've survived the filth of the streets and the treachery of Tudor food, but now comes the next betrayal, the very clothes on your back. You think fashion is fun? In this world, fashion is warfare, and it's aimed directly at you. You drag yourself toward a tailor's shop, ducking beneath a creaking sign painted with shears. The smell of wool hits first, sharp, oily, mixed with the tang of dyes that sting your nose. Rolls of cloth hang everywhere, but don't be fooled, most of it's not for you. The noble silks shimmer in candlelight, while the rough, itchy stuff waits for common folk. Guess which pile you're destined for. The tailor eyes you. He already knows your rank, he can smell your purse's light. Wool for you, he mutters, unrolling coarse brown cloth. Wool is the Tudor uniform, worn in every season, hot or cold. In summer, it suffocates. In winter, it clings to damp skin like a wet blanket. And forget washing it, most clothes go unwashed for months. You live in your own sweat, until your neighbors live in it too. The tailor measures you, tugging a string tight across your chest. He grins. Perhaps a ruff. And suddenly you're choking. A ruff is that giant frilly collar you've seen in portraits, white, starched stiff, laid like a paper lantern around your throat. It looks grand, if you're Elizabeth I. On you? It feels like being strangled by a dinner napkin. You try to turn your head. Nope. You're stuck staring straight ahead. Want to bend down? Forget it. People actually used special sticks to scratch under their ruffs. Imagine buying a shirt that comes with its own back scratcher. Historians still argue whether ruffs were status symbols or simply madness, but you don't need debate. You just know you can't breathe. He fastens a jerkin, a kind of fitted vest, over your chest. It's stiff, padded, heavy. You feel like you're wearing a sofa cushion. Over that, hose, tights that stretch from waist to toe. Yes, tights. And they sag. Constantly. You tug them up, only for them to slip again. Every Tudor man lived with this dance: hike up, shuffle forward, repeat. For women, the punishment is even worse. The tailor brings out a corset, stiffened with whalebone, laced tight enough to squeeze ribs. Your lungs gasp for mercy. Beauty requires discipline, he says smugly. Really, it requires oxygen. You think about yoga leggings and hoodies and suddenly want to cry. Then the fardingale appears, a hooped skirt so wide you could block a doorway. It turns walking into sailing, you sway side to side, unable to fit through alleys. Sitting? Impossible. Stairs? death trap. The hoops creak like a ship's rigging, and you can't stop giggling nervously because you look less like royalty and more like a Mobile Bell tent. And don't even think about laundry. Soap is harsh, water is scarce, and dyes bleed. That bright scarlet doublet you saved up for? One wash, and suddenly it's pink. People don't change outfits daily. They wear the same thing until it falls apart, patching holes until the patches have patches. You think thrift shops are retro? Tudors invented hand-me-downs. There's also the matter of sumptuary laws. These were strict rules dictating what colors and fabrics you're allowed to wear, based on rank. Silk, velvet, fur trims? Off limits unless you're wealthy. If you, a humble cobbler's son, strut down the street in crimson satin, you're fined, maybe even jailed. Fashion policing isn't just an Instagram comment, it's the law. But of course, the wealthy flaunt it. They glitter in gold thread embroidery, cloaks lined with ermine, shoes tipped with jewels. You watch them parade past and feel your wool itching worse than ever. One nobleman wears slashed sleeves, literally, his clothes are cut open to show off bright fabric beneath. It looks dramatic, until you remember it rains almost daily. Now he's strutting around in soggy ribbons. Quirky tidbit, some young men stuffed their codpieces, the padded flap at the front of their hose, to absurd proportions. Yes, that part. They bragged with fashion what they couldn't with words. Historians debate whether codpieces were purely about swagger or if they also doubled as little pouches. Either way, you try not to laugh when one swaggering gentleman walks by, looking like he smuggled a loaf of bread in his pants. The tailor isn't done tormenting you. He insists on shoes, leather, stiff, and painfully narrow. No socks, of course. Blisters form instantly. And remember, sewage-soaked streets. Shoes rot quickly, but buying new ones costs a fortune. Some folks walk barefoot, soles tough as leather themselves. As you leave the shop, sweltering under layers, you notice the weight. Clothes here aren't light, they're armor against the world, but also shackles. Every step feels heavier. The rough scratches, the wool prickles, the hose sag. You tug, squirm, gasp, and realize you're exhausted just by wearing life. Even bedtime offers no relief. Nightshirts are rough linen, shared by whole families. One shirt, washed maybe once a season, passed around. You climb into straw bedding still wearing half your day's grime. Lice scuttle, fleas nibble, the rough leaves marks on your neck. You toss, you itch, you sigh. And here's the final cruelty, in Tudor England, clothes don't just choke you physically, they choke your identity. What you wear isn't your choice, it's your prison sentence, stitched in wool and bone. Fashion here doesn't say, "Who am I?" It says, "How much can I endure before I suffocate?" You close your eyes, tugging at the hose one more time. Maybe tomorrow you'll get used to it. Maybe not. But either way, you're trapped in cloth that never lets you forget, you're not in charge here. Your clothes are. The rough scratches your throat as morning light slips through the cracks in the shutters. You shift, itching, then cough, hard. Not because you're sick, not yet, but because the air itself is smoke. Welcome home, dear survivor. In Tudor England, your house doesn't protect you, it quietly conspires against you. You roll over on your straw mattress. Something scuttles. Fleas. Always fleas. You scratch your wrist and feel the tiny bites blooming. Lice nest in your hair, bedbugs crawl the sheets, and if you're unlucky, rats sneak into the straw at night. You think you're alone in bed? Huh? You're running a full Tudor petting zoo. The mattress crunches with husks of old straw. Families change the stuffing maybe once or twice a year. Until then, it smells like sweat, mildew, and mouse droppings. You dream of memory foam, But here, memory foam is just remembering every flea bite. You pull on yesterday's clothes, because there's no such thing as fresh clothes, and stumble toward the hearth. Your lungs sting as soon as you inhale. Fireplaces here don't pull smoke up the chimney, they spit it into the room. Ceilings blacken, walls drip soot. Eyes water constantly. People joke about London's fog, but inside, it's a private storm cloud. Historians still argue whether Tudor houses killed more people with smoke than outside disease. You cough again and think, maybe it's not an argument worth having. The house creaks. That's not charming, it's warning. Tudor homes are timber-framed, patched with wattle and daub, mud mixed with straw and dung. Looks quaint in paintings, but in reality, flimsy. Roofs leak, walls sag. You touch a beam and feel it damp with rot. Rain seeps everywhere, and in winter, frost climbs inside like ivy. You can practically scrape ice from your pillow. And the floors, oh, the floors. Packed earth for the poor, uneven boards for the lucky. Straw called rushes is spread across them, meant to keep things clean. But months pass before anyone replaces it. Food scraps, bones, spit, vomit, everything ends up down there, matted together into a foul carpet. Cats scratch at it, dogs pee in it, children drop toys into it and never see them again. The smell rises until even your fleas wrinkle their noses. You step outside for fresh air, but the street presses close. Tudor houses lean over alleys so much they almost touch above, as if conspiring to block out the sky. Privacy? Forget it. Walls are thin, windows tiny, and glass, if you even have it, is expensive and warped. Mostly you've got oiled cloth or wooden shutters. So, you live with dim rooms, constant drafts, and the sound of your neighbor's arguments bleeding through the planks. And bathrooms? Forget porcelain, forget plumbing. A chamber pot sits in the corner, brimming with danger. It's used by the whole family, emptied out the window with that famous warning cry. You hesitate to cross the floor at night because you know your bare toes might find it. Welcome to Tudor midnight. For the wealthy, even luxury betrays you. Tapestries on the walls block drafts, sure, but they also trap fleas. Heavy curtains smell like mold. Featherbeds collapse into lumps. Silk sheets. Gorgeous, but impossible to clean. You might die glamorous, but you'll still die itchy. Quirky tidbit, people believed putting a live hen under your bed could draw illness out of the air. Imagine trying to sleep with a clucking chicken under your mattress, and you'll understand Tudor desperation. You walk through your little house, running your fingers along rough beams. The kitchen's smoky, the storage room damp. Salted meat hangs from hooks, stiff as leather. Onions and herbs dangle from rafters, meant to keep evil away, or maybe just rats, though the rats look unimpressed. Outside, you glance at neighbors' homes. Fire is the greatest terror here. One spark from a hearth, one candle left too long, and the whole row of houses goes up like kindling. Families sleep lightly, always half aware of smoke. Your thatched roof is less protection, more fuse. And don't forget, the home isn't just your family's. Apprentices, servants, boarders, sometimes animals all share the space. You might wake to find a chicken roosting in your bed or a pig snuffling under the table. It's noisy, cramped, smelly. Privacy is as rare as fresh bread. Night falls. You huddle again near the hearth, cough thick in your chest, listening to the beams groan as the house settles. Every sound is magnified, wind clawing through cracks, water dripping from leaks, mice gnawing in the rafters. You think of modern words like sanctuary or comfort, and laugh softly. Because in Tudor England, home isn't where the heart is. Home is where the fleas are. And the smoke. and the sickness waiting to creep in while you dream. You scratch another bite, curl into your damp straw, and pull the blanket close. The house sighs around you. You realize the cruel truth: this place isn't shelter. It's a slow, suffocating trap. And if the streets don't get you, the food doesn't betray you, the clothes don't choke you, your very home will quietly finish the job. The smoky rafters fade behind you as morning drags you out again. Your belly grumbles, your rough itches, your shoes rub your feet raw, and now it's time to work. No excuses. In Tudor England, work isn't purpose or passion, it's punishment. You stumble into the daylight, rubbing grit from your eyes. Children already haul buckets, apprentices shout, and farmers march toward fields with tools heavy enough to break backs. There are no weekends here, no coffee breaks, no mental health days. You work until you drop, then hope someone drags you back upright. Let's start with farming, because for most Tudors, that's life. You pick up a hoe, the wood rough and splintered, and trudge into the fields. The soil is heavy clay, clinging to boots, sucking you down. The sun beats, or the rain lashes, but either way, you bend and dig, bend and dig. Oxen groan as plows drag through furrows, slower than your patience. Your hands blister, your back screams. And still, you must press on, because one bad harvest means famine. Historians still argue whether Tudor peasants had enough leisure compared to later workers. Some say feast days and church holidays gave them breaks. You glance at your bleeding palms and think, yeah, holiday sounds more like hallucination. If you're not farming, maybe you're apprenticed. That sounds noble, right? Learning a craft? Wrong. Apprenticeship is 7 years of servitude. You rise before dawn, sweep floors, fetch tools, obey every barked order. Maybe, just maybe, you'll learn shoemaking or carpentry along the way. But mostly, you're a glorified errand runner, without pay. Your master feeds you, houses you, and smacks you when you're slow. And you call that opportunity? For women, work bleeds into everything. Churning butter until your arms ache, spinning wool until your fingers blister, scrubbing clothes in icy water until your skin cracks. Then cooking, hauling, nursing, child-rearing, an endless cycle. Forget rest. Rest is a rumor. And servants? They're the invisible gears of Tudor households. You polish boots, empty chamber pots, carry trays piled with swan meat you'll never taste. You bow, scrape, endure. A noble's temper could cost you a day's wages, or your job. No employee rights hotline. Just survival. Even children can't escape. By 7, you're minding babies or scaring birds from crops. A toy might be a lump of clay shaped into a horse. School? Only if your family can spare you. Otherwise, welcome to the workforce. Childhood, as you know it, doesn't exist. You pause, rubbing sweat from your brow. Around you, the sounds of labor rise like a chorus: blacksmiths hammering, weavers clacking looms, tanners boiling hides in vats that stink worse than open sores. Those tanners reek so badly, they're shunned on the street. Imagine smelling so foul that people cross themselves when you pass. Quirky tidbit: some Tudor workers used urine to process cloth and leather. Yes, urine. Buckets of it. They even bought it from neighbors. So next time you wrinkle your nose at laundry detergent, be grateful. At least it's not your cousin's pee. And yet, even if you slave, sweat, and suffer, you're still not safe. Injuries end lives. One slip with a saw, one kick from a horse, one fall from scaffolding, and you're finished. There's no workers' comp, no hospital stay, no physical therapy. You limp forever, or you die. The guild system controls your future. Want to be a tailor, a baker, a mason? You'd better join the guild, or else you're shut out, fined, or even arrested. Guild rules dictate how you work, what you charge, and who you sell to. It's protection, sure, but it's also a cage. By noon, you stagger under the weight of labor. Your stomach growls for that chalky bread, your throat aches for weak ale. You dream of sitting, just sitting. But your master's voice cracks across the air, back to it. And back you go, because saying no isn't an option. The hours crawl. Your body aches like an old man's, though you're barely 20. You steal a glance at the sun, praying for dusk. You mutter under your breath. A joke slips out, because in a place like this, laughter is survival. At least gym memberships are free, if you call this a workout. Evening finally limps in. You drag yourself home, shoulders slumped, fingers raw. The smoke in your cottage greets you like an old enemy. You collapse onto your straw bed, fleas immediately biting, but you're too tired to care. Tomorrow, it starts again. Work doesn't build character here, it drains it, day by day, until you're nothing but a husk bent double in the fields. And that truth wraps around you heavier than your wool cloak. In Tudor England, your job isn't a career. It's a slow execution carried out with tools, blisters, and endless hours. The next morning arrives, and your back still throbs from the fields. You think about calling in sick, but in Tudor England, sick days don't exist. And if you do fall ill, well, that's almost worse. Because the people meant to heal you often make things much deadlier. You cough hard and spit into the rushes on the floor. The phlegm looks worrying, so your neighbor leans over with a smirk. Best see a barber surgeon. You sigh. A haircut and a surgery in the same building, what could possibly go wrong? You trudge into the little shop marked with a red and white pole. That striped pole? It's not just decoration, it's a reminder. Red for blood, white for bandages, spinning in the wind like a warning sign. Inside, the air reeks of iron and soap. Razors gleam, basins drip, and in the corner, a saw. You hope it's for wood. It's not. The barber surgeon claps you on the shoulder. Feeling poorly, eh? We'll bleed you right. And before you can protest, he's tying a band around your arm, opening your vein with a knife, and letting the blood flow into a bowl. Why? Because the dominant medical theory says sickness comes from imbalanced humors, blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. Too much blood? Just drain it out. You sway as your strength seeps away, wondering how weakness is supposed to make you better. Historians still argue whether bloodletting ever helped some conditions, like high blood pressure. But in your case, it just makes you dizzy. The surgeon shrugs. Drink some beer. You'll be right. But let's say you've got something worse, a toothache. No Novocaine here. The barber grips rusty pliers, jams them in your mouth, and yanks. The pain is white hot, exploding through your skull. You scream, thrash, nearly faint. He holds up the tooth like a trophy. Good riddance. You spit blood onto the floor, trembling. Modern dentistry has never looked so heavenly. And then there are cures. Have a fever? Try swallowing crushed emeralds, if you can afford them. Too poor? Then it's herbs, poultices, or maybe fried earthworms. Got jaundice? Doctors recommend drinking beer mixed with raw egg and, brace yourself, sheep's dung. That's not medicine, that's a prank. Yet people swear by it. Quirky tidbit, one popular remedy for baldness was rubbing your scalp with burnt bees and dog urine. Yes, really. You suddenly decide your receding hairline looks fantastic. But the worst cases, the ones where limbs swell, wounds fester, or plague boils rise, bring out the sore. No anesthetic, no antiseptic. 2 strong men hold you down. The surgeon hacks. You howl until your throat tears, then faint. Infection almost always follows. Some live. Most don't. And the surgeon? He just washes the sore in a bucket of water and moves to the next patient. You stumble back into the street, woozy, sleeves still damp with blood. The town physician walks past in robes, nose in the air. He charges 10 times what the barber does, but mostly offers the same nonsense: astrology charts, herbal concoctions, and the ever-reliable urine diagnosis. He peers into a flask of your urine, sniffs, swirls it in the light, and declares whether your liver is angry or your heart is too moist. You pay a fortune for the privilege of hearing basically nothing useful. Even the apothecary, with shelves of jars, powders, and dried plants, is suspect. He mixes mercury with honey, sells arsenic as skin treatment, and prescribes opium to crying babies. The line between cure and poison is razor thin. You sit on a bench, clutching your bandaged arm, watching townsfolk shuffle past. Some wear charms against sickness: rabbit's feet, dried toads, even scrapings from a mummy's tomb imported from Egypt. Yes, powdered mummy was ground up and swallowed as medicine. You choke back nausea. At least the placebo effect is strong. Children cough, old men limp, women faint from fevers. And everyone accepts it. Because here, death is close. Life expectancy hovers low, and even a scratch can mean sepsis. You realize, in Tudor England, surviving illness isn't about doctors saving you. It's about luck. Sheer, unromantic, grim luck. Night settles. You lie back on your straw bed, arm throbbing, tooth socket raw, lungs rattling with smoke. You pray you don't fall seriously ill. Because if you do, the choice is clear: endure the disease, or endure the cure. Either way, you're playing dice with death, and the house always wins. You wake sore, stiff, and still bleeding a little from yesterday's treatment. Your neighbor eyes you warily as you step outside. Careful what you say today, he mutters, the courts have ears. You laugh nervously, until you realize he isn't joking. In Tudor England, the law doesn't protect you, it hunts you. You don't even need to do anything criminal. Suspicion alone can drag you into the justice system. Whisper the wrong thing about the king, mock the wrong noble, or even just look at someone the wrong way, and suddenly you're branded a troublemaker. And trust me, this is no small-town courtroom with dusty files. This is theater, gruesome, bloody, unforgettable. It starts small: you're hauled before a local constable. He doesn't need evidence. He just listens to gossip. He was seen out late. She muttered against the parish priest. They fought over bread. Gossip here isn't idle, it's deadly. And once you're accused, you're halfway convicted already. The stocks sit waiting in the square, wooden boards clamping your hands and head. Crowds gather instantly, because humiliation is free entertainment. Children pelt you with mud, women dump slop, men spit. You sit there helpless, aching, sun beating down or rain soaking you, while your neighbors laugh. Justice, Tudor style. If the crime's worse, the punishments grow darker. Theft? You could lose an ear, sliced off for everyone to see. Adultery? Whipping, branding, maybe worse. Treason? Oh, treason is the crown's favorite spectacle. You're dragged to the scaffold, crowds roaring, drums pounding. The axe gleams. And sometimes, it misses. More than once. Heads aren't always tidy work. Historians still argue whether public executions truly deterred crime or just entertained the masses. Standing in that crowd, stomach twisting as you watch a man twitch on the gallows, you don't need to debate. you just know you'll never feel safe speaking freely again. Quirky tidbit: some villages punished gossips, especially women, with a scold's bridle. It was an iron mask with a metal plate shoved into the mouth to stop talking. Imagine wearing a muzzle in public, every step jangling with bells so everyone stares. Suddenly, you choose silence. And the torture chambers? They're real, though used mostly for serious crimes. The rack stretches you until joints pop. Thumb screws crush bone. The scavenger's daughter clamps you into a crouch until blood bursts from your nose. Confession is the goal, not truth. If you admit it, you're guilty. If you don't, you confess anyway, just louder. Court itself is hardly a comfort. Trials are fast, brutal. No lawyer to argue for you, no presumption of innocence. You stand trembling while a judge in robes stares down, deciding your life with a flick of his hand. The jury? Neighbors who probably already dislike you. Evidence? Hearsay. Proof? Rumor. You feel the noose tightening before the sentence is even spoken. And all this is wrapped in pomp and ritual. Punishments aren't private, they're a show. Executions are holidays. Crowds cheer, vendors sell pies, children climb onto shoulders for a better view. Death is spectacle, justice is theater, and you? You're the unwilling star. You slink back from the square, heart pounding. Every word feels dangerous, every glance suspicious. You try to comfort yourself with a joke, at least here, true crime podcasts are live and unscripted. But the laugh dies in your throat when you see a man being dragged past in chains. Tonight, you lie awake in your smoky cottage, every creak sounding like boots outside your door. You wonder, if someone accused you tomorrow, who would defend you? Would anyone? Or would they watch, shout, jeer, as the stocks close around your neck? In Tudor England, law isn't justice. Law is theatre. And you are always one rumor away from becoming part of the show. Your neighbor's warning still buzzes in your ears. You survived the stocks, for now, but freedom in Tudor England is never free. You shuffle through the smoky streets and hear bells tolling, voices rising in chant, incense drifting on the wind. And it hits you, here, religion rules every breath you take. The church looms above everything, stone towers heavy as judgment, stained glass glowing like fire, spires stabbing the sky. Step inside, and the world shifts. The air is thick, the candles flicker, and your footsteps echo like confessions. You kneel because everyone kneels, you pray because everyone prays, and deep down, you fear what happens if you don't. In Tudor times, your soul is public property. Faith isn't private, it's politics, identity, survival. Henry VIII rips England away from the Pope, crowns himself head of the Church of England, and suddenly everything changes. Or does it? Mass looks the same, hymns sound familiar, but whispers swirl. Who's loyal to Rome? Who bends to the king? Which answer keeps you alive? Historians still argue whether ordinary villagers truly understood the Reformation or just went along, mumbling prayers, trying not to starve. But you understand this much: every sermon feels like a test you can't afford to fail. You clutch your prayer book, if you can read it. The language flips back and forth, Latin one decade, English the next. You mouth words you barely grasp, terrified someone will notice. Imagine fumbling lyrics at karaoke, except instead of side-eyes, you risk execution. Quirky tidbit: some Tudors carried prayer nuts, tiny wooden spheres carved with microscopic scenes of saints inside. They'd open them, press them to their noses, and sniff holiness like perfume. Pocket-sized devotion. You think of modern stress balls and smile, same idea, just holier. But faith isn't gentle. Rumors of heresy are deadly. If you're Catholic under a Protestant monarch, you hide relics in cupboards, whisper prayers in barns, risk everything to hear secret mass. If you're Protestant under a Catholic swingback, you burn your Latin books, spit on images of saints, and try not to look guilty. One regime change, and suddenly yesterday's piety is today's treason. Step into the public square, and you might see proof, a wooden stake, piled high with kindling. Flames lick the air, and a heretic screams as fire swallows them. Children watch, men cheer, women cross themselves. The smell of roasting flesh mixes with incense. You gag, and someone whispers, "This is God's justice." You wonder, justice? Or politics in robes? Even daily life is ruled by faith. Bells mark your hours, dawn prayers, midday prayers, evening prayers. Festivals fill the calendar, Feast of Saint Michael, Feast of Corpus Christi, endless saints' days. Work stops, streets flood with processions, banners whip in the wind. Sometimes it feels joyful. Sometimes it feels like surveillance wrapped in celebration. And confession, oh, confession. You kneel, whisper sins, and pray your words don't leak. Because priests talk, neighbors speculate, and even shadows feel like spies. You wonder if honesty is safe, or if silence is holier. Yet for all its terror, religion offers beauty. Choirs rise in song, candles glow, stained glass blazes in the sun. You close your eyes and almost forget the fear. For a heartbeat, you feel lifted, wrapped in something bigger. Maybe that's why they cling to it, you think. Because without faith, this brutal world might feel unbearable. But then you remember, the same faith that comforts also condemns. And you, trapped in the middle, must navigate it like a storm, one wrong prayer, one careless phrase, and the tide drags you under. You leave the church as dusk falls, incense clinging to your ruff. Bells toll again, deep and heavy, echoing through your chest like a warning. You whisper a prayer, half out of belief, half out of sheer survival. Because in Tudor England, your body belongs to labor, your words belong to law, but your soul belongs to religion, whether you like it or not. You step out of the church into the damp twilight, ears still ringing with bells, heart heavy with incense and fear. And then it strikes you, your body aches, your arm itches from the surgeon's cut, your stomach growls with hunger. But beyond that, you're simply dirty. In Tudor England, filth isn't a mistake, it's a lifestyle. You glance down. Your clothes are stiff with sweat and smoke, your fingernails rimmed with grime. Bathing, in this world, is practically a crime against common sense. People believe hot water opens your pores, letting in sickness. So instead of washing, they layer. You keep piling on linens, hoping they'll absorb the dirt. Spoiler, they don't. They just trap it. You feel like a walking compost heap. The rivers and streets. Worse. You shuffle toward the Thames, thinking fresh water might help. But the river is a soup of human waste, dead animals, dye runoff, and rotting fish. Children splash in it anyway, giggling, while barges float past carrying barrels of ale. You gag. Bathing in this? No thanks. Suddenly deodorant feels like the greatest invention of all time. Historians still argue whether the Tudors actually smelled as bad as we imagine, since they masked odors with herbs and perfumes. But standing here, sniffing your own armpits, you're confident, yeah, they stank. Quirky tidbit, Queen Elizabeth herself took a bath once a month, whether she needed it or not. That was considered generous hygiene. You're at day 3 and already losing the will to live. You head home, where bathing means a wooden tub in front of the fire. If you're lucky, someone heats a kettle. If not, it's cold water, or no water at all. Families often share the same tub. Father first, then mother, then kids, in descending order, until the baby soaks in what's basically a broth of everyone else's dirt. Ever wonder where "don't throw the baby out with the bathwater" came from? This is it. You shudder. But filth isn't just cosmetic. It kills. Piles of waste rot in alleyways. Chamber pots empty from upstairs windows, splattering on the cobblestones with a cheerful "Gardiloo" yelled as warning. You leap aside just in time to avoid a splash. Too late, your shoe squelches. And that muck? It breeds disease faster than you can say typhoid. You scratch your arm, irritated by fleas. Everyone has them. Lace, too. Nits crawl in your hair, making your scalp burn. Rats scurry underfoot, bold as dogs, feasting on scraps. They're fleas? They're carrying plague. And the plague doesn't knock politely, it storms in, leaving boils the size of eggs, fevers that melt your strength, and death that spreads like wildfire. Still, people cling to cures. Sweet-smelling pomanders of herbs. Scented gloves. Bathing in vinegar. Holding a chicken's rear against your buboes to draw out the poison. You laugh, weakly. Because in the middle of stench and superstition, it almost makes sense. And don't think the rich escape. Their palaces stink too. Rushes on the floor hide layers of old food, spittle, and worse. Perfumes and rose water only cover so much. You realize everyone here is just used to the smell. That's the real survival skill. By nightfall, you crawl into bed itching. Your straw mattress rustles, not just straw, but bugs. Fleas nibble your ankles, lice creep through your hair. You slap at them, groaning, but it's useless. You drift off anyway, dreaming of hot showers, fluffy towels, and minty toothpaste. Because here, in Tudor England, filth isn't temporary. It's permanent, baked into skin, streets, even the air you breathe. And you? You wouldn't survive, not because of the stench itself, but because of what festers inside it. Disease. Plague. Misery. Death. In the dark, you whisper to yourself, half joke, half prayer, "Forget time travel, I'll settle for soap." The fleas have barely let you sleep, and the damp straw clings to your skin when the cock crows. You groan, but there's no snooze button here. The Tudor sun rises, and with it comes the grind of work and survival, and you're expected to fall in line. You drag yourself outside, eyes gritty, stomach empty. Fields stretch across the horizon, dotted with bent figures hacking at earth with crude tools. Most people here are peasants, laborious bound to the land, spending sunrise to sunset plowing, sowing, weeding, reaping. And you? You're handed a hoe and told to make yourself useful. The work is endless, back-breaking, and unforgiving. Your hands blister, your back screams, sweat drips into your eyes. No machines, no shortcuts, just your body grinding against the soil. And the food you grow? Most of it goes straight to your landlord, a noble lounging in his manor. You keep scraps, barley bread, maybe some beans, a bit of bacon if you're lucky. Your children's bellies swell with hunger more than food. Historians still argue whether peasants in Tudor England were truly miserable serfs, or if they enjoyed occasional leisure between harvests. But as you feel the spade splinter in your palms, you lean toward miserable. Quirky tidbit: farmers sometimes tied candles to plough horns so oxen could work at night. Imagine pulling a night shift with flickering wax dripping on your hands, medieval overtime, unpaid. If you're not in the fields, maybe you're in a workshop. The towns buzz with trades, blacksmiths hammering, weavers spinning, tanners boiling leather in vats that stink of urine. You're handed a shuttle and shown how to weave linen. The rhythm is hypnotic, but your fingers bleed from slips, and the overseer's cane taps threateningly if you slow. And God help you if you're an apprentice. 7 years bound to a master, living under his roof, doing every filthy chore before you even touch the trade itself. Scrubbing floors, emptying slops, fanning the fire. Dreams of independence fade under the weight of endless, yes, master. Children aren't spared. At 6 or 7, they're put to work, scaring crows, gathering wood, spinning thread. You see little ones with faces already lined from labor, their tiny hands raw. Childhood, in this world, is a luxury reserved for nobility. Speaking of nobility, the contrast cuts deep. While you sweat in the fields, nobles ride past in velvet cloaks, hawks perched on their fists, heading out for a day of hunting. You envy them, until you realize that even nobles are trapped in performance. Their lives are endless banquets, councils, marriages of politics, and the constant fear of falling out of favor. Rich or poor, you're shackled to survival, just gilded differently. And don't forget the sailors. Ports brim with ships bound for trade and war. The sea promises fortune, but reality? Weeks crammed in rotting wooden hulls, rats nibbling your toes, salted meat crawling with maggots, storms tearing sails. If you survive, maybe you return with pay. If not, you're just another nameless body tossed to the waves. By midday, your back is breaking. Sweat soaks your shift, dirt cakes your face, and the sun scorches your neck. You crave water, but it's foul, so you gulp down ale instead. Children drink it too, it's weaker, but still beer. Hydration by fermentation. You chuckle at your own joke, then nearly collapse from dizziness. Evenings offer no rest. After work, there's mending to do, animals to feed, bread to bake. Your hut is smoky, your belly half empty, your muscles trembling. And yet, in the corner, someone plays a fiddle. Neighbors gather, clapping, stomping, laughing. Somehow, between the drudgery and the hunger, they carve out scraps of joy. Music, dancing, gossip, it doesn't erase the pain, but it numbs it. You sit, aching, nibbling stale bread, listening to the tune. And you realize, survival here isn't about thriving, it's about enduring. You keep going because everyone else does. Because to stop is to die. As you lie back on the straw, fleas already at your ankles, you whisper a weary joke, maybe tomorrow I'll call in sick. Then you remember, there are no sick days. Only work. Always work. The day of grinding labor has barely ended, yet Tudor life never lets you off the hook. Tonight, you're dragged into a world both dazzling and dangerous, entertainment, superstition, and the things people believe when reason isn't enough. You follow the crowd toward a bustling market square. Torches flicker, drums beat, and jugglers toss knives into the smoky air. Minstrels pluck lutes, their voices weaving ballads of kings, saints, and scandals. For a moment, you forget your aching back. You clap, you laugh, you even sway to the tune. After hours of plowing and sweating, this feels like oxygen. But entertainment here is a mixed bag. Wander too far, and you'll find bear-baiting pits, huge dogs tearing into chained bears while the crowd cheers. You gag as blood sprays, yet everyone else roars with delight. Even Queen Elizabeth adored these brutal spectacles. Imagine Netflix being nothing but live animal fights, that's Tudor binge-watching. Quirky tidbit, in Southwark, some entrepreneurs kept both playhouses and bear-baiting arenas side by side. You could see Shakespeare's Hamlet one day and a bear gnashing dogs the next. Culture and carnage, neighbors by design. Speaking of Shakespeare, yes, you'd probably see him too. The Globe Theatre buzzes with life. You pay a penny and join the groundlings, crammed shoulder to shoulder, standing in mud and spilled ale. Actors bellow, words thunder, plots twist. You don't always follow the flowery lines, but the energy sweeps you along. When the stage blood spurts, you cheer. When the ghost moans, you shiver. And when the comedy cracks, you laugh, relieved that Tudor jokes about flatulence still land 5 centuries later. Historians still argue whether Shakespeare was truly adored by all classes, or if he was just one among many playwrights scrapping for attention. But standing in that crowd, craning your neck, you feel his genius burn through the smoky night. Yet the theatre is risky. The Puritans sneer, calling playhouses dens of sin, fearing they spread disease, rebellion, and bad morals. Sometimes theatres are shut down. You realize that even joy here is policed. And then there's superstition, the invisible glue binding every Tudor heart. You walk home past doorways marked with chalk, herbs stuffed into rafters, charms pinned to clothes. People fear witches, demons, fairies. A sick child? Blame the evil eye. Milk spoils? Blame a witch. Crops fail? Blame spirits. You overhear whispers of witch trials, women accused of flying on broomsticks, of cursing neighbors, of keeping cats as familiars. Some confess under torture. Some burn. You shudder. One careless word, one grudge-bearing neighbor, and you too could be branded a witch. Superstition invades medicine as well. You've got a toothache? Bite down on a frog. Fever? Drink a potion of powdered unicorn horn. Spoiler, it's narwhal tusk. You laugh nervously, because people swear by it. Festivals tie it all together. May Day bursts with flowers, dancing, and maypoles. Midsummer fires crackle, driving away evil. At Christmas, the streets brim with wassail, masks, and mischief. These are the few moments when life feels brighter, when people forget the dirt and hunger and just live. But even here, superstition lurks. Spilling salt means bad luck, sneezing might mean sickness, dreams carry omens. Tonight, after the theatre and the music, you stumble home. The streets are darker now, shadows stretching, strange noises whispering. You clutch a charm you bought from a peddler, just a cheap trinket of bone and twine, but in this world, it feels like armor. You slide onto your straw bed, fleas hopping again, and you close your eyes. Outside, fiddles fade, drunks stagger, owls hoot. You wonder what's scarier, the things you see, or the things people believe are out there in the dark. You pull the blanket tight, whispering half a joke, half a plea. Good night, fairies, please don't steal me. The fiddles and laughter fade, and the streets fall silent. But your mind keeps turning. If superstition rules the night, justice and punishment rule the day, and you're about to learn how little mercy Tudor England has to offer. It starts with a shout. You're jostled awake at dawn, dragged into the square by a restless crowd. Everyone pushes forward, eager to watch. You crane your neck. At the center stands a wooden scaffold, thick with ropes and iron chains. A man, pale and trembling, kneels before the sheriff. His crime? Stealing a loaf of bread. His punishment? Hanging. Your stomach knots. The rope creaks, the crowd jeers, and the man drops. It isn't quick. His feet kick, his face purples, his body twitches while the onlookers cheer as though it's a holiday. You want to turn away, but everyone else is staring, delighted. Entertainment, Tudor style, is cruel. Historians still argue whether public executions truly kept the peace or simply normalized brutality. But as you watch children eating pies while a body dangles overhead, you know, fear is the point. Quirky tidbit, sometimes, the condemned were forced to watch their own body parts boil or burn before death, as a lesson. Cannibalism wasn't on the menu, but intimidation definitely was. And not all deaths are equal. Nobles accused of treason face the axe. Beheading is cleaner, more dignified. But it doesn't always go smoothly. You hear stories of botched swings, of executioners hacking again and again. Once, Mary Queen of Scots needed 3 strikes to die. Imagine lying on the block, praying the man with the blade is sober. But even without execution, punishment here is savage. Stocks and pillories dot the streets. You see a woman clamped in one, tomatoes, dung, and insults hurled at her for scolding her husband too harshly. Another man's ears are nailed to the pillory, he writhes, tearing himself free, blood pouring down his neck while children laugh. That's justice. Whipping posts line the alleys. Branding irons sear skin with hot letters, T for thief, V for vagrant. Thieves sometimes lose hands. Liars may lose ears. And if you spread rumors against the crown, well, your tongue might be cut out. You rub your lips nervously, swearing you'll keep quiet from now on. But prisons aren't an escape. You're curious, so you peek into the Marshalsea, a notorious debtor's jail. The stench nearly drops you. Prisoners rot in filth, chained together, surviving on scraps brought by family. Without money for jailer's fees, you're starved or left to die. Imagine paying to be tortured. You mutter, Netflix's Prison Break looks like a spa compared to this. Then there are the witch trials, remember those whispers you heard? You witness one now. A woman accused of cursing her neighbor's cow is dragged into court. There's no real evidence, just gossip. She's stripped, pricked with needles to find witch marks. When she cries, they call it proof. The verdict is certain before the trial even starts. She'll hang, or worse, burn. You clutch your little bone charm tighter, terrified someone will point at you next. And don't think the powerful are safe. The Tower of London looms, a fortress of fear. Treason, real or imagined, can land anyone there. Torture devices whisper from its walls, the rack stretching bodies until joints snap, the scavenger's daughter crushing them into blood and bone. You never actually see them used, but the stories are enough. Fear is its own punishment. You realize that Tudor justice isn't about fairness, it's about control. Keep the poor in terror, keep the nobles in check, keep everyone watching their backs. Survival here means not standing out, not speaking up, not stepping out of line. By nightfall, you stumble home, shaken. Every shadow feels sharper, every knock heavier. You slide under your blanket, whispering bitterly, maybe I'll survive this century, if I never open my mouth again. And as sleep tugs you down, one last thought gnaws at you, what if you had been the one in the stocks today? Would anyone have thrown you bread, or only stones? Your nerves are raw from the hangings, the pillories, the stink of prison. You keep telling yourself, just keep your head down, just keep quiet, but in Tudor England, silence won't always save you. Because if there's one force that seeps into every crack of life here, it's religion, and religion shapes not just your Sundays, but every breath, every thought, every fear. The bells toll before sunrise. You drag yourself from bed, still sore from yesterday's labor, and stumble toward the church. Everyone does, attendance isn't optional. The air is thick with incense, the priest's voice echoing Latin chants that you don't fully understand. Yet you kneel, you mutter prayers, you bow when expected. Because not doing so? That's dangerous. The Reformation has torn England apart. One decade, you're told the Pope in Rome is the head of the Church. The next, King Henry VIII declares himself supreme head. Then Edward pushes Protestantism, Mary swings it back to Catholicism, Elizabeth tries to balance it. It's whiplash, religious musical chairs. And whichever monarch sits on the throne, you're expected to instantly believe what they believe. Slip up, and you might burn for heresy. Historians still argue whether ordinary villagers truly grasped the theology behind all this, or if they just followed orders to survive. But as you sit in the pew, you know one thing, you'll nod to whatever doctrine keeps your skin intact. Quirky tidbit, parish churches sometimes kept church ales, basically fundraising parties where ale was brewed, sold, and drunk in the churchyard to raise money for repairs. Imagine worship followed by what's basically a beer festival, saints and tankards, hand in hand. But the darker side of faith is everywhere. You hear whispers of martyrs burned at Smithfield, men and women tied to stakes, flames licking their bodies while crowds chant psalms. Some sing hymns as they die. The smell of charred flesh mixes with incense in your nightmares. Even small slips feel risky. Miss a holy day? Pay a fine. Fail to fast on Fish Friday? Neighbors whisper. Own the wrong Bible translation? Suspicious. Recite prayers wrong? Dangerous. And don't even think about mocking a priest, you'll find yourself flogged before you can say Amen. The church controls more than your soul, it governs your calendar. Feasts and fasts, saints' days, holy days. Work halts, markets close, everyone attends Mass. Life's rhythm is dictated not by your stomach, but by the church bell. You begin to resent it, yet you obey. Because everyone's watching. Always. Confession is another weight. Kneeling, whispering sins, your voice shaking, your breath hot against the wooden screen. Relief sometimes comes, but also fear. Did the priest judge you? Will your secret spread? Gossip has a way of traveling faster than prayer. Religion seeps into law, too. Blasphemy is punishable, sometimes by death. Imagine muttering, "Oh my God," in frustration today, here, that might put you on trial. And superstition blurs with faith. People buy relics, splinters of the true cross, saints' bones, vials of holy blood, often pigs. Some believe wearing a saint's medal prevents plague. Others carry rosaries, not just for prayer, but as talismans against demons. You feel trapped between belief and fear, clutching charms, muttering psalms, never sure which one might save you. At the same time, faith offers comfort. A funeral procession passes, mourners carrying candles, chanting hymns. The grieving widow clings to the promise of heaven, and you see a flicker of peace in her eyes. You realize that, in a world of sickness, war, and hunger, belief in salvation is sometimes the only thing keeping people standing. By the end of the day, your mind aches. You've said the prayers, paid the tithes, bowed to the altar. Yet in the silence of night, lying on your straw mattress, you whisper, what if none of this is true? What if it's just fear keeping us chained? The thought chills you more than the fleas ever could. You shut your eyes, forcing yourself to pray again, not out of faith, but out of terror that someone, neighbor, priest, or even God, might hear the doubt in your heart. You murmur the words anyway. Because in Tudor England, belief isn't just about your soul, it's about survival. The prayers echo in your ears, but morning comes whether you're devout or doubtful. And now, you're about to face one of the strangest, most exhausting parts of Tudor life, the endless rules of manners, fashion, and social climbing. It turns out, even if you dodge plague, punishment, and bad ale, you can still be ruined simply by wearing the wrong hat. You tug at your scratchy wool tunic, hoping it passes muster, but eyes dart your way. In Tudor England, clothes are law. Literally. The sumptuary laws dictate what you can and cannot wear, based entirely on your rank. Silks, velvets, rich furs. Reserved for nobles. Gold embroidery. Forget it, unless you fancy a hefty fine or worse. For common folk like you, it's linen, wool, and the occasional scrap of leather. Wear the wrong thing, and you're a criminal. Historians still argue whether these laws were strictly enforced, or more symbolic, but the threat is always there. Nobility flash their privilege on their sleeves, literally, while you stew in rough cloth, itching from fleas. You sigh, muttering, guess Amazon Prime wardrobe delivery isn't a thing yet. Quirky tidbit, Bright green sleeves were all the rage for young men at court, flashy, showy, practically the Tudor version of neon sneakers. And codpieces? Oh, they're everywhere, men strutting around with padded, bulging pouches at their crotches, symbols of masculinity so exaggerated you can't look without giggling. It's fashion meets farce. But clothing is just the beginning. Manners are a battlefield too. At the manor table, you sit carefully, remembering the endless rules: don't blow your nose into your hand, don't lick the communal spoon, don't stab bread with your knife. Always tip your hat to superiors, bow at the right depth, never drink before the highest-ranking guest lifts their cup. Forget one step, and you're branded uncouth. At court, etiquette grows absurd. Servants whisper instructions: how to address a duke versus a knight, when to curtsy, how low, whether to kiss a hand or just bow. It's a social dance, get it wrong, and you offend someone powerful. And in Tudor England, offending the wrong person can cost your life. The noble obsession with appearance borders on comedy. Elizabeth I herself is powdered white with lead makeup, lips painted with cinnabar, a mercury compound, hair blazing red with wigs. Up close, it looks ghostly, even monstrous, but to her courtiers, it screams majesty. You think of modern influencers smearing avocado masks and chuckle, at least those won't poison you. Perfume is prized too: lavender, rose water, musk, all masking the reality of rare baths. Nobles might bathe once a month, maybe less. They claim it's healthier not to wash too often, that water carries disease. You wrinkle your nose, realizing half the court smells like roses sprinkled on top of a pigsty. You catch glimpses of noble banquets, tables glittering with silver, goblets shining, dishes piled with roasted swan, peacock, venison. But even here, status rules. Only the highest ranks get the choicest cuts, lower guests chew gristle. You dream of snatching a goose leg, but one wrong move could earn you a glare sharp enough to strip flesh. Ambition burns hot in this world. Merchants grow rich, buying land, sending sons to school, angling for titles. Marriages are business deals, alliances stitched with dowries and promises. You watch as one wealthy wool merchant bows to a knight, his velvet sleeves barely legal, his eyes gleaming with hunger. Everyone wants to climb, but the ladder is slippery, and the rungs cut deep. And the gossip, oh, the gossip never stops. Who wore silk illegally, who bowed too shallow, who dared to laugh at the wrong jest. Rumors ruin reputations faster than plague. You learn to speak carefully, to laugh softly, to nod often. In this world, survival isn't just about strength, it's about subtlety. By nightfall, your head spins from rules, bows, glances, whispered judgments. You collapse onto your straw mattress, groaning. At this point, being hanged might be simpler than remembering who to curtsy to. The candle sputters out, and you curl under the blanket, still itching in your rough wall. As sleep creeps in, you dream of a world without laws on sleeves or bows, only to wake with a jolt, realizing that tomorrow, the dance of appearances begins all over again. Your body aches, your clothes scratch, your mind spins with rules you can't quite master. Yet dawn doesn't wait. Once again the cock crows, the bells toll, and Tudor England shakes itself awake. And here's the truth: even if you've dodged famine, plague, gossip, and gallows, you're still not going to last. Because survival here is a full-time job, and no one, not even the wealthy, can keep winning forever. You rise, bones heavy. Already you feel older than you are. Most people in this world don't see 50. Infant deaths are common, women risk their lives at every childbirth, men fall to fevers, accidents, wars. Even kings, with their physicians and potions, die young by today's standards. You rub your chest, half expecting some mystery sickness to strike before noon. Historians still argue whether life expectancy numbers are skewed by high child mortality, but even if you survive infancy, danger stalks every year. Rotten teeth, infected cuts, poisoned food, contaminated water. You realize your modern immune system wouldn't stand a chance. Quirky tidbit: some people believed that keeping a live chicken near your body could draw disease away from you. One cure for the plague literally involved strapping a plucked chicken's bottom against your buboes. You try not to laugh or gag. The grind of daily labor eats at you too. Harvest time means back-breaking dawn-to-dusk work. Winter means cold gnawing through thin walls, firewood scarce, hunger pressing at your ribs. Nobles may feast, but even they shiver in drafty stone halls. Everyone suffers under the weight of the seasons. And always fear. Fear of punishment, fear of the church, fear of your neighbor's whispers. You realize you're constantly glancing over your shoulder, wondering who's watching, who's listening, who's ready to accuse. Freedom, in any modern sense, doesn't exist here. At night, you wander the narrow lanes, watching shadows creep. Somewhere a baby cries. Somewhere a dog howls. Somewhere, a drunken fight spills into the street, ending with blood pooling between cobblestones. You duck into an alley, heart pounding. There's no police, no hotline, no safety net. If you survive, it's luck. And you start to see the truth: Tudor England isn't built for you. Its food poisons you, its air chokes you, its laws trap you, its faith suffocates you, its justice terrifies you. Even if you make it through one day, you'll never belong. You close your eyes, whispering, "I wouldn't last a week." And maybe, just maybe, you feel relief. Because survival here doesn't mean living, it just means enduring. Now let your breathing slow, let the fires of the day burn down to embers. Imagine the clamor of the markets fading, the gallows empty, the church bells silenced. The lanes grow still, the straw beneath you softens, the weight of scratchy wool melts away. The fear that's chased you through every shadow loosens its grip. The faces of executioners, priests, neighbors, nobles, they drift like smoke, fading into the night sky. Your body relaxes, your jaw unclenches, your chest rises and falls with calm rhythm. The danger, the rules, the noise, all of it belongs to another world, far away now. You're here, safe, wrapped in quiet, each breath deeper, each thought slower. Even Tudor nightmares can't follow you into this stillness. Let the candle burn low, let the wind hush against the window, let your mind slip gently away. Tomorrow belongs to daylight, but tonight belongs to peace. Rest easy. Sleep softly. The past can't touch you here.